What's up, cooks? Welcome to the Card Kitchen. I am the Card Chef, and today we are cooking up custom-made cards that we would like to see in the future of Pokemon Pocket. So today we are bringing you 2 EX cards, 2 non-EX Pokemon, 2 supporters, 2 items, 2 tools, and then we're also bringing in 2 stadiums, because I would like to eventually see stadiums in Pokemon Pocket, and 2 special energy. That's right. Right now in Pokemon Pocket, we only have energy from the energy zone, which is a huge difference from the paper TCG, because as in the paper TCG, if you don't know, the energies that you play are actually in your deck as cards. But I do feel there is space for energy cards as long as they are special energy. So that's what we're going to do. But first, we're going to start with the EX Pokemon. Excuse me. So we are going to start with Alolan Raichu EX. So I did want to originally do Raichu EX because we haven't had a Raichu EX yet. However, now that we have things like Paldean, Clodsire, I did want to put regional variant of Raichu instead of Raichu EX itself. So we are picking Alolan Raichu EX, and we are going to make sure that it is a stage 1. It says basic, but it's supposed to be a stage 1 evolving from Pikachu. It's an electric Pokemon, weak to fight-in, like most electric Pokemon, has a 1 retreat cost and 150 HP. This is also an error. I do believe I wanted to give it to like 140 or 130, but nevertheless, the HP can be whatever it wants. It's not really the most important part. The coolest thing about this is actually the ability, and the ability is Electric Charge, which reads, during your turn, when this Pokemon moves from your bench to the active, move all energy from your other Pokemon to this card. So, like it reads, it can only happen on your turn. So if somebody gusts it out with Sabrina or Cyrus, that effect would not happen. And so it would happen on your turn, and it would happen basically when you retreat. You would retreat your active. Alolan Raichu EX would come into the active spot, and then all energies that are on the field would be put onto a Raichu EX. And then Raichu EX, or Alolan Raichu EX, I should be saying, would now have the ability to use Thunder, which is 3 electric energy, for 160 damage, and then discard all energy from this Pokemon. So very similar to the new Pikachu, to be completely honest. However, because it's a stage 1, it will have a little bit more extra damage. But you can, of course, still play this, and I think it would actually be better. Even if it was 150, I still think it would be better than the Pikachu EX because I would have more HP, right? So I actually think, as cool as the new Pikachu EX would be, I actually think it might not get played because it has 120 HP, which is not enough for an EX Pokemon. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the next EX Pokemon. So this is the next EX Pokemon. It's Armored Mewtwo EX. So yes, it's the Mewtwo before Mewtwo escapes from Giovanni's lab, hooked up to all the armors and all the wires and all that. So it's pretty cool, pretty interesting. There are actually art variants of this in the paper TCG. And the cool thing about this is if you did decide for whatever reason to play this in a deck, you could also play it alongside Mewtwo EX because the name of it is actually different. You can play 2 Armored Mewtwo EX and 2 Mewtwo EX. So Armored Mewtwo EX would have 150 HP, weak to Dark, and 2 retreat costs, just like Mewtwo EX. However, it would have a completely different attack, which would be called, or what I called, Shadow Ball for 3 Psychic Energy. It would do 30x. So basically, this attack does 30 damage for each energy you have in play. So all energy that you have on your side of the field, regardless of what Pokemon it is, it will do 30 damage for each energy in play. So right away, the 3 Psychic would allow it to do 90 damage. If there's any other energy on any of your other Pokemon, it would increase by 30 each time. This would be really strong, and wouldn't be the easiest thing to do, but it would be pretty interesting to try and do. First of all, you can match it with things like the new Giratina. So you can manual each turn onto your Mewtwo, and then do the Giratina, the new Giratina from Shine and Revelry, its ability, which would end your turn, which basically would mean by your third turn of attachment, this would be able to do 150 damage, which would be pretty cool. Now you might want, if this card or an attack like this, because that's really why I make these cards, is to try and, like, the reason I made this card is because I want to see an attack like this in general, not necessarily 30x, it could be 20x, which would probably make it a little bit more balanced, to be completely honest. But you can match it with things like Giratina. You could also match it with things like a Magneton from Genetic Apex. And if you did the Magneton and Giratina each turn going forward, you would be able to do a tremendous amount of damage. So yes, maybe you would have to bring this down to like 20 damage per energy, but I thought this was a really cool idea. Let me know what you think. But with that being said, let's get into the non-EX Pokemon. So the next non-EX, or the first non-EX Pokemon, is going to be another Eevee. Yes, I'm sure we're sick of tired of seeing Eevees, but I also want to see an Eevee that's actually going to help build an Eevee deck, or an Eeveelutions deck. So what I did is I made this a non-EX Pokemon, basic with 60 HP, weak to fighting, and 1 retreat cost. And then it has 1 attack and 1 ability. The attack is very standard, 1 colorless for tackle, does 10 damage, but it's really the thing that makes this really important or really good is its ability called Evolution Mastery. So discard this benched Pokemon and replace it with an evolution from your hand. So basically, it would be like you're evolving, say, a Leafeon EX onto your Eevee. Basically, what you would do is, instead of putting it on top of your Eevee, you discard the Eevee and then you put the Leafeon in its place. And why do you want to do this? Well, the reason why you want to do this is for a couple of reasons. One, once you discard it to the discard pile, what you can now do is you can use the Celestial Town Elder to put the Eevee back on your bench so that you can try to evolve into a different Eevee again. And not only that, but you can keep redoing it a couple of times, because if you have Celestial Elder twice in your deck, you can do this twice, evolve into 2 evolutions, put them both back on, and then evolve into 2 other different evolutions. So you can have 4 different evolutions on the board at the same time. I felt like this would be a really cool way to do it if you aren't going to come out with something like an Eevee EX that I've talked about in previous videos that can help you evolve into evolutions as well. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to get into another Pokemon that would also help with evolutions, but also help with a ton of evolutions in general. So let's get into that card. This is the next card, and it's a new Ditto card. And the reason I chose this is because I gave it the ability Transform, which basically reads, you may put any stage 1 card from your hand onto this Pokemon to evolve it. You can't use this ability during the first turn you put, your first turn, or the turn this Pokemon was put into play. So yes, that makes sense, because obviously if you put Ditto down, you wouldn't be able to just evolve it right away. You would still have to wait a full turn, just like every other Pokemon that you want to evolve. But this would be really cool, because it would basically be like you could play 3 or 4 copies of a basic to evolve into a bunch of different Pokemon. So one, again, this would help with evolutions, but you can also put 2, let's say, Staryu and 2 Ditto, and then what you can do is you can play 2 Starmie and 2 Starmie EX. Same thing with Marowak. You can do 2 Cubone, 2 Ditto, and then you can play the 2 Marowak and the 2 Marowak EX, and so on and so forth. Basically, just increasing the ability to get into a basic that you know you want to get a guaranteed evolution into a specific Pokemon that you would want. This was actually taken for inspiration from a Ditto called a Ditto Prism Star, and that card in the paper TCG was only allowed to be played at 1 copy per deck. So maybe this would be a little too strong, but I think it would be really cool just to help certain decks out or build different types of decks. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the supporter cards. So the first supporter card we're going to look at is Bill. And yes, as you can see, there's a common theme about a lot of the cards that I make. They're all basically Kanto made cards. So basically cards from the first 151 Pokemon, or the first series, the Indigo Plateau, because that's my generation of Pokemon, right? So Bill reads, and this would be really strong and possibly very broken, but again, inspired from another card from the Paper TCG, says, you can play this card only if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent. So basically, in this case, it would be if you have more prize points available than your opponent. So if your opponent already knocked out one of your Pokemon and you haven't knocked out any of theirs, then you can actually play this card. Otherwise, you cannot. So once they knock out one of your Pokemon, you can play this card. And it says, during this turn, you can play 3 supporter cards, including this card. So basically, again, once your opponent knocks out one of your Pokemon and now they have less or they have more prize points than you do, you would play this. And now you can play 2 supporters in a row. That would help you play 2 cards. Basically, what you're doing is you're trying to play 2 supporters by playing 3, Bill being one of them, to set up the other 2 that you want to play. So you basically what you can do is you could Leaf and Dawn in the same turn. That would be pretty cool. You can Gust with a Sabrina or a Cyrus, as well as Leaf in the same turn if you wanted. There's a bunch of different cool combos that you could possibly do. You could Professor's Research and Gust. You can Professor's Research and Professor's Research again, to be completely honest, if that was something you wanted to do, if you had the ability to do it. So there would be a lot of cool and interesting things you can do. Would it be broken? I don't know. This card in the Paper TCG wasn't like actually that broken, believe it or not. But it was really cool, but it had a niche value to it. In a 20 card deck, I don't know if it would be broken or not, or it maybe actually wouldn't be good at all, because it would sometimes feel like a wasted card or a -1 in a 20 card deck, which you wouldn't want either. So let me know what you think of this card, if you think it would be broken or not in Pokemon Pocket. But with that being said, let's get into the next supporter card. So this is the next supporter card. It's called Pokemon Center Lady, and it says, heal all HP from one of your Pokemon. Discard all energy from that Pokemon. However, as a drawback, because there are times where you might not have any energy on the Pokemon that has a ton of damage on it already, it says it must have 3 energy on it to play this card. Which I think a card like this, if you're healing all energy, discarding all energy already feels like a huge drawback. But like I said, if it already doesn't have energy on it, basically if you have like, let's think like who's like the one, like an Executor EX, right? Executor EX, 160 HP. If it has a giant cape, it's 180. It only has 1 energy on it. If you were to just use this on your Executor EX, it would be completely broken because it only has 1 energy on it, and then it would just be able to put another energy right back on it again to start attacking. It would just be way too strong. So I needed to make sure I gave it some type of setback where it wasn't just about discarding energy, but it actually had to have energy on it to discard. So I think this would be very strong still. However, it would be very limited and you wouldn't be able to just completely abuse it. You would have to really make sure you use it in very specific situations and not just nonchalantly whenever you want. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the item cards. So the first item card we're going to talk about is Rare Candy. So I'm sure most of you know what this is, and if you don't, let me just explain it. So this is a card from the Paper TCG. I did not really change it at all, to be completely honest, because I feel like this card just needs to be as is in the game of Pokemon. I don't think it should become a supporter. I think it should stay as an item. I think Evolution and Stage 2 decks need a ton of support right now, because as you may notice, and I talk about this all the time, decks right now, the minimum amount of Pokemon that you're playing, the better the deck is, usually, from what we can tell a lot of the time. Basically, this card reads, choose one of your basic Pokemon in play. If you have a Stage 2 in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, put that card on top of the basic to evolve it. So basically you're skipping stage 1 and going directly to stage 2. It says you can't use this card during the first turn or on a basic Pokemon that was just put in to play this turn. So of course you wouldn't be able to evolve a Pokemon you just put onto the field, but on the following turn you can skip stage 1 altogether by playing this card and playing your stage 2 on top of it. So again, I just think stage 2 decks need a lot of support. They're not the greatest. The decks that are playing stage 2 Pokemon aren't ones that are necessarily the main core function of the deck. Things like Magnezone, you can take your time because you want to sit on the Magneton for as long as you can to ramp as many energy as you can anyways. Things like Greninja are really about late game anyways, when you want to actually start sniping and put in damage everywhere else that you want. So I just don't see even Gallade. Like, Gallade is very good, very strong, but it's not the best deck. It's not even top 5 in my opinion, maybe top 10, but definitely not top 5. And then things like Infernape just kind of fall under the radar. Charizard's still very good, but doesn't have a positive win rate. So I do think we just need some help with stage 2 cards, get it online a little bit quicker to kind of help those types of decks out a little bit, because the more we go forward in Pokemon Pocket, the stronger 18 trainer decks clearly start to become. Right now we have 2 18 trainer decks in the game, Palkia EX and Articuno EX, that are literally in the top 5, if not like the top 4 to be completely honest, and one of them is actually top 3 in my opinion. So it is, like I said, we need to find a way where we feel comfortable putting more Pokemon in our deck by trying to make that deck a little bit better with things like Rare Candy. But anyways, let's get into the next item card. So the next item card I have on that I have created is called the Master Ball. So I've talked about different balls in previous videos that I would like to see come into the game. Right now we only have Pokeball. I talked about Great Ball and how it can possibly search things like stage 1s, and Ultra Ball that can possibly search things like stage 2s. However, I just decided, because I've already talked about those cards before, to make Master Ball. And Master Ball reads, search your deck for a random Pokemon that evolves from another Pokemon. So this is pretty cool because, one, you don't know which one you're going to get. It could be a stage 1 or it could be a stage 2. But the cool thing about it is, even though it's random, you can kind of build a deck in a certain way where this card would actually be able to search specifically what you want. So for example, this played in a deck with Rare Candy, and a deck that plays just the basic and just the stage 2. You wouldn't even put the stage 1s in your deck at all. Although I don't really know if Pokemon Pocket right now would allow you to save a deck and play it if you didn't have the full evolution line. That would probably have to be something that is changed in order to build a deck like this, unless they don't want you to. Then I don't know. But basically the way I explain it, and the way I think that it would work if they did something like this, is, again, you would just play say Charizard EX, you would play 2 Charmander, 2 Charizard EX, no Charmeleon, 2 Master Ball, and 2 Rare Candy, so that you could automatically search the Master Ball and then have a high chance of getting the Rare Candy into your hand and then using it with the Charizard that you automatically get from your Master Ball. But anyways, with that being said, let's get in to the next cards, which will be tool cards. So this is the first tool card that I came up with. It's actually inspired by a real card from the Paper TCG, which is also called Trick Coin, but I did change it a little bit in order to make it not so broken for Pokemon Pocket. So basically it reads, during your turn after you flip any coins for an attack of a Pokemon this card is attached to, you may ignore all effects of those coin flips and begin flipping those coins again. But basically, so the way that reads is, let's say, for example, you have a Celebi. This is attached to the Celebi. Celebi flips 4 coins. You get 3 tails and 1 heads. You can basically say, nope, reflip all those coins one more time. So basically you would flip it again in hopes of getting at least 2 or higher, better than your original flips of those 4 coins. But in the paper TCG, that's how this card works. But what I did is I added a little bit of extra text at the end. It says discard this card at the end of your turn. So there's a couple of things here. One, it works exactly like the Loomberry. You, at the end of your turn, it basically just discards it right away. It also doesn't allow you to abuse it time after time after time, and it also forces you to keep it in your hand and only play it when you finally decide to start to attack. So this would be very good for coin flip decks, of course. And yes, coin flip decks can be very abused, but it can't be abused with Misty because it's a Pokemon tool card which goes on a Pokemon, so Misty wouldn't be able to be abused. Yes, of course, Celebi would become a little bit broken, but you would only be able to do it once or twice in a game, if at all. But this would be really more for cards like Marowak, who has a probably the lowest play rate of all EX Pokemon in the game, to be completely honest. It would also help cards like Medicham possibly to get off the ground a little bit and not just be a card that nobody ever plays, and just things like that. This would also probably make Executor EX a little too strong, but again, you can only do it twice in a game, so I don't think it would be all that broken, but I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments below. But with that being said, let's get into the next tool card. So this card is called Poison Barb. Again, yes, a Pokemon tool card, and also inspired by the one from the paper TCG. And it reads, if an opponent deals damage to this Pokemon, to the Pokemon this card is attached to, the attacking Pokemon is now poisoned. So this would be very good for Pokemon Pocket. Status condition decks right now are very few and far between. And now that we have the new Clodsire coming out, yes, it's most likely going to be played with Weezing, but after you play the one-time combo with Weezing and Clodsire, you kind of have to figure out how to make that happen again. And so I really do believe we need something like this to help poison decks or decks with status conditions like this kind of come off the ground a little bit, especially since Arceus is the best card in the game right now, and it's not weak to status conditions. Basically, it can't be put to sleep, it can't be poisoned, it can't be burnt, or anything like that. It wouldn't hurt to make those status condition decks better anyways, considering these still probably won't be all that great against Arceus decks anyways. But I did create a stadium card, which we'll get into right now, which I think would help with the Arceus issue for status condition decks. So let's get into that right now. So this is the stadium card I was talking about. It's called Power Plant, and it says, while this card is in play, Pokemon EX have their abilities turned off. So yes, there you go. This would help with the whole status condition of Arceus not being weak to status conditions. This would completely help with that. It would also turn off any other ability that an EX Pokemon has, which would be pretty decent. This could also be played in automatically in decks that are not playing EX Pokemon. So this would might be played in decks like Rampardos that are all single price decks. This would also be played in maybe some other like Skarmory Magnezone and stuff like that, because obviously if we're not playing EX Pokemon, we don't have to worry about their abilities. There aren't actually too many EX abilities I think you have to worry about right now, to be completely honest, but Darkrai would be turned off, Arceus would be turned off, the new Giratina would be turned off. I'm trying to think of what else might have an ability that I'm not thinking of, but anyways, it would turn off the Pokemon EX, because if this turned off all abilities, I think it would be kind of broken, to be completely honest. But this would help with at least Arceus, and of course Darkrai as well. Darkrai could be very frustrating, still a very good card, so this being played in a lot of decks might stop those decks from being played, or at least Darkrai. I don't think Arceus would stop being played because the damage output from them is still extremely good. But anyways, let's get into the next stadium card. So this is the next stadium card, and I called it Viridian Forest, and it has the card art from a card called Giant Forest of Plants, and which is basically what this card is very inspired by. And it reads, your grass type Pokemon on the field can evolve the first turn they are played. So basically, grass type Pokemon can evolve as much and often as possible that you want, as long as the stadium is in play. So for example, Venusaur, Superior, Beedrill, Butterfree, all these stage 2 cards could actually go from Caterpie to Metapod to Butterfree all in one turn. Same thing for Beedrill or Beedrill EX. You can go Weedle into Kakuna into Beedrill or Beedrill EX, and then same thing for Venusaur and Superior and so on and so forth. But what this doesn't work with is Leafeon, because as you can see, it says your grass type Pokemon on the field can evolve evolve the first turn they are played. Sorry. So it's not the grass types in your hand can evolve right away. It's the ones that are on the field. So of course, because Eevee is a colorless Pokemon, you wouldn't be able to use this with Leafeon, which I think is actually very good, because Leafeon could be extremely broken in that case. But also this could be very much a little bit too strong. So maybe it would be no non-EX, but they can't evolve into EX Pokemon. I think it would have to maybe be, because of course Exeggutor EX on turn 1 with 1 energy like that would be super duper strong and very hard to beat and work around. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the last 2 cards, which are special energy cards. So this is the first special energy, and for those who have played the paper TCG, you might know this as double colorless energy, and of course that's what it is, double colorless energy. So it says this counts as 2 colorless energy, however, which is what it reads for in the paper TCG, but for Pokemon Pocket I made it very more specific. It says this counts as 2 colorless energy on a colorless Pokemon. So you can't just play this on like a Mewtwo, who is, I believe, is 2 psychic, 2 colorless, or on a Charizard, which is 2 fire, 2 psychic, 2 fire, 2 colorless. And you also can't play this on things like Mew EX to get it built up super duper quick, or Yon Mega, which is all colorless energy. It has to be played on a colorless Pokemon, so things like Tauros or Pidgeot EX or Snorlax or whatever it may be. And I think this would be actually very good in a deck with Snorlax, because you can do this, Snorlax and Barry all in the same turn and attack for 100 damage with your Snorlax and Barry. So I think that would be very cool, and there'd be a lot of cool, interesting things that you can do with this card and make colorless Pokemon pretty much try to make an entire colorless deck, which would be really cool to do. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the last card of the video. So this is the last card and the last special energy that we want to look at, and just like double colorless, this is also a double energy, except it's double dragon energy, and it reads, this card provides every type of energy but provides only 2 energy at a time, and only while this card is attached to a dragon type Pokemon. So basically, as you know, dragon type Pokemon in Pokemon Pocket usually have like a 2 different energy requirement in order to attack. For instance, Druddigon is water, fire, and colorless, and Dragonite is water, electric, and 2 colorless. And then Garchomp is the dragon type one, is water, fighting, and colorless. The Giratina is grass, psychic, and colorless. So basically you can use this and any other energy, and it would automatically cover the 2 specific ones, and then whatever other card energies you're playing in your energy zone to make up for the colorless requirement to finish off the attack. So for instance, you put this on a Druddigon, it covers the fire and the water, and it's good to go. And then you just take whichever ones you're playing in your energy zone and put it on to finish the 3 energy requirement, and then Druddigon can start attacking for basically 2 energy. But the cool thing about special energy is because they're in your deck, and not in your energy zone, you can actually load up a 3 energy attacker on the first turn. So if you're playing a Druddigon, you can put 1 energy from your energy zone and then play this card onto your Druddigon, and then you're already attacking for 90 damage right away. So that would be pretty decent. It would take up a card slot. So yes, I do think it is somewhat balanced, but I don't know if they'll ever come out with special energies. This was more for fun in hopes that if they ever did come out with energy cards, they would obviously have to be special energy, considering we use energy from the energy zone. But anyways, with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning in. Leave a comment in the comment section below, like, subscribe, and share. Join my Discord and my Twitter, and as always, keep cooking.